Yeah, I'm really excited to host this webinar today on transforming skill sets and enabling change. So focusing on professional development within your company. And as you read in the description, so this is really about the question how to embed circular economy thinking and skill building into your workplace. So the circularity becoming a key part of company strategy. The question is, what are companies already doing to integrate that thinking, to engage their employees, and to mobilize them to create a movement internally? So for that purpose, I'm really excited to have with us today here on the webinar Elodie Jupin from Tarkett and Markus Laubscher from Philips. Both of them have been one of the longest members in the Foundation's business network. And their respective companies have been on that journey of transitioning towards a circular economy for a number of years now. So they bring, both of them, plenty of experiences they can share from. And so without further ado, I'd like to kick us off by having both Elodie and Markus say a few words about what they're doing and the questions that we've brought to the speakers today is why is your company transitioning to become a more circular business? What is your overall approach to learning and employee engagement? And who in particular are you targeting, and why this group? And then to hear in much more detail a few examples that they have on what they're doing and any tips or lessons learned from that. So Elodie, just kicking off with you, why have you joined us today?
Because you invited me.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So why,
that would be good.
It would be great to just hear for those on the call who haven't met you yet, just what you're doing.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah. So I work for a company called Tarkett, and Tarkett manufactures flooring all over the world. We actually have a turnover of around 2.8 billion euros. We operate different factories in about 35 different countries. We are present commercially in more than 100. And basically, to give you also a little scale about Tarkett, we sell about 1.3 million square meters of different types of surfaces every day. So we are not that many. We are 13,000. So on the scale of big companies, we are a small player. But we do our share, I would say. Mm-hmm. And myself, I work for the EMEA division of Tarkett, and I'm in charge of all the circular economy projects within that division.
Thanks. And Markus, we've been working quite a lot in the past, so and you've been around for so long, so I always assume you're quite fairly known in the network, but just a brief introduction from yourself would be great.
Of course. Hello. Good afternoon to you all. Again, a pleasure to to be here and see how I can share some of the experiences that we have collected in Philips. So I work with Philips, a global health technology company. We are, transitioning through a number of reiterations. It's a company that's 128 years old. Started with light bulbs and has been evolving through various reincarnations, and the latest being focusing really on our strong heritage in healthcare technology in hospitals, big imaging systems in hospitals, IT systems for managing patient data, and connecting that with the B2C commercial activities that we have around providing appliances in your bathrooms, kitchens, and living rooms, and connecting all of this around a vision of a health continuum where healthcare is not one episode that you experience when you're in the hospital, but it's really a continuous activity where you keep healthy, and if you have an incident, quickly come back and work with that incidents in your home until you're back on track again, or back on the feet. So that's maybe for Philips, and for myself, I have had the opportunity actually to start the circular economy journey of Philips some 6-7 years ago, and have been quite excited and learning every day everything new, because this is really a vast field, as you all know. And my role in Philips is to coordinate the circular economy activities, which mainly involves helping our various businesses in realizing the potential of circular economy thinking, translating that into value for themselves, and helping the organization to better understand and be equipped to actually doing this transformation of becoming a circular company.
Thank you. What's interesting about both Tarkett and Philips as well is that both of your companies have also looked into how to embed circular economy thinking into the wider organizational strategy, and to the bigger picture of concretely translating that into targets that relate to the employees. So whilst we're speaking here about the transforming the skill sets and the learning picture, we're also speaking about how to engage and mobilize your employees within the companies. And I'd love to hear from both of you also a few words on where you're at within your company on approaching this topic more organization-wide, and how this has helped you in the particular learning activities that you're driving within your companies.
I'll start if you don't mind. Maybe some of you have seen me move a few seconds ago to tell you that Tarkett is a very is a company that is really into sustainability. All the rooms here where I'm in our offices in Waalwijk in the Netherlands are equipped with sensors. So if I don't move, I don't have light. But that's it's really for the sake of economy for the light. So we don't have rooms that are illuminated all night long without necessity. And it's the same in most of our offices now in Europe at Tarkett. I mean, Tarkett did not start this circular economy journey yesterday. We actually started quite a few years ago. We can say that we have had a long-lasting commitment to sustainability. And already back in the late 50s in Sweden, we were trying to find ways of actually recycling our products into our production. So we started that in Sweden. And we've done many different things over the years. But to really have a structured approach, we have to say that it started in 2010, when we really set our targets for 2020 when it came to circular economy indicators and climate change indicators within our company. And we're going to have the results next year. No, we already know where we're heading, and we already know where we stand on the different indicators. And so what we've done, we can say over the last decade, basically, whilst we were structuring, is that we had a very systematic approach, and we decided to embrace the cradle-to-cradle principles because those were really helping us towards our circular journey as well. And applying those cradle-to-cradle principles, we decided also to go for our PVC flooring completely phthalate-free. So we decided to get rid of the phthalates. And we are also looking at open loop recycling, which is looking at other industries' waste and trying to incorporate that into our products, or create products that are meant to actually absorb somebody else's waste into our production, so that we can take care of that. We also have a policy of zero waste to landfill. So you can see already it's not a checklist of everything that people can do that I'm going through, but it's just to tell you that we've done many things. But we have to let that be known, especially internally, from our employees, because if you're not working in R&D or if you're not working in production, you might not be touched, by everything that Tarkett has been doing when it comes to sustainability and circular economy. And you were asking also, Monika, at the beginning of this webinar, which target group we have. And I think our customer-facing employees are quite important, because they are the ones who will directly convey the message, whether it's in B2B or B2B2C, about what Tarkett does when it comes to circular economy. And they also need to bring proofs of what it is we are doing. So this is what we decided to do, is really to target those employees when it comes to, in a way, enhance their skill sets when it comes to circular economy and their knowledge.
Thank you. And so thanks for already giving us a bit of a heads up of more specifically who you're working with. Particularly interesting of what you're saying, that you mentioned a couple of examples of what you have been doing, and that it's also something that the employees know about, or that there's awareness of the multifaceted approach. And I'm particularly interested in these organizational enablers as well, to just hear from Markus as well. What has been Philips doing that helped on a more organization-wide, big picture perspective to help people understand of what's happening and why it's happening in Philips, and anything that had helped you in retrospect with the learning activities that you have been running.
So thanks, Monika. Well, I think it's good to take a small step back and also share a little bit, the kind of behind the scenes activities and thoughts and evolution that is happening and has happened. So it, I think, comes very natural to a company who is engaging in the circular economy to start looking at their operations maybe first, then at their supply chain and their products, and thinking about, okay, how can we maybe make that more circular, use more recycled materials, bring things back, etc., etc. Really looking at the inflow and outflow of materials, making these analyses. And that's also what Philips has been doing. And I think many sit in that same boat when they start. What we have learned is that after some time of pursuing that with metrics and finding KPIs and trying to work with certain businesses and certain functions to bring those KPIs to bear, we realized that actually there is a second and complementary approach that is needed to transform a company into becoming circular. And that is more the soft side of things. It's really how you influence the culture of your organization and how you help employees to identify where they can play a role and where they can contribute in, let's say, an overall ambition of becoming a circular company. And that's something that we initially didn't think about so much. But if you look into all kinds of literature of transformations, you find that back consistently. And so it's something that I really would like to recommend to anybody on the webinar, is to take stock of where are you in your transformation and your program in circular. Is it all about the hard metrics of material flows, or is it also about those softer things that you can as diligently follow up and work on? And there are many frameworks to use. You can choose from. We in Philips, we kind of were influenced by a framework that McKinsey has been introducing through many transformations that they have been working with, which basically looks at 4 quadrants. It looks at communication on the one hand, so really sharing with employees what they, so that there's a shared understanding of, okay, do I understand what this is all about? Then really capability, secondly. Am I able to do actually this new thing circular, or do I lack some skills to do this? Thirdly, when I look around me, do I see this actually happening? Do I have role models? Is there something that my leaders are doing? And then lastly, around really the structures and the processes and the incentives, You know, am I being punished if I don't do it, or am I being rewarded if I do it? And that kind of approach has helped us to put next to our hard circular economy program a transformation program where the learning and enablement capabilities, you know, are central. And I'm happy to talk more about that. But I would be interested, you know, Elodie, how did you experience that? And was that also for you some kind of a aha moment at some point, or did you bring that kind of thinking on early already in your program?
It was a bit similar to what you're describing, is that because our top management is so committed to the shift and the transition to circular economy, that for, I would say, the experts, it was almost a given that everybody should actually help us and work with us and work, you know, in the same direction. And we pretty much hit a wall. And because people just said, yeah, hang on, what are you talking about? What is it? And exactly what you're describing in a way is this going to help me really in my daily job? And the kind of carrot and stick reaction, we got that too. Okay, if I do it, are you good? Am I going to get more money? Will I have a bigger bonus? Or if I don't do it, you know, are you going to? Same for you now. Sensors everywhere. So, you know, we did have the same kind of experience in a way. And we did same thing as you did. You take a step back because your top management is convinced. The experts, you know, of course they burn for this topic, so they want to see it materialize. And then everybody else is like, okay, is that just, you know, the flavor of the month, or is it, you know, for the long run? And to prove to the people that it's for the long run, you need to embed that first into your strategy. And it has to be, like when I said it has to be systematic, you have to follow up on it quite often, and not only on the hard indicators, but on the softer ones as well. That's why we decided to actually embark, in a way, all the employees, the whole company on the journey. But we pretty much also left each of our geographical division decide what would work best for them. So to give you a few examples, EMEA decided to go for the webinar format. Copying the EMF maybe, I don't know. So they decided to have a few webinars with chosen topics, very sharp topics, almost expert topics, like, I mean, cradle to cradle principles and the concept and how we apply that. But as it's such a big part of what Tarkett is, it's important for everybody to understand what it is and how they can talk about it and how they can present it to their own customers afterwards. But also more general topics were also touched upon on those webinars. And circular economy at large was one of those webinars that we quite recently had. But it was pretty much, you know, talking about circular economy in general, and then looking at different examples around us. So what you were describing, do we have proofs that this is working? And what are we doing? What it is that we are doing? So also showing to our own employees that these are the examples that you can actually mark as being circular economy examples of, you know, how actually we are walking the talk, talking the walk. And so everybody was really, you know, excited. So that's the EMEA format, webinars. And it's not just one webinar like this, it's a set of 4 to 5 webinars on the course of 1 week, so that everybody has an opportunity to join at one point in time. Because if you have a webinar 8 o'clock in the Monday morning on circular economy, guess what? Nobody shows up. But if you have one, you know, on the Monday afternoon, and then on the Tuesday morning, and then on the Wednesday morning and Wednesday afternoon, etc., then you have you give people a lot of opportunities to join. So again, that was the EMEA way. Tarkett North America decided for something slightly different. They decided to actually first have some ambassadors. So they really tried to identify the people within their organization who already had a bit of, you know, shape and form for circular economy. They sort of wanted to talk about it without having, all the skills or maybe all the knowledge they would need to. And then they decided, okay, these are the people we're going to target. And we take, them with us. We teach them, and then they can actually be our ambassadors out there. So whether it's internally and talk to their peers, and also animate their own sessions, seminars, etc., join conferences, and also talk, of course, externally to our customers. So they decided to have a set of, I think it's around 10 regional ambassadors that really are the ones embodying circular economy. And then
Elodie,
we have other examples.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in there if you don't mind.
Sure.
To actually, highlight one thing that we also learned is that in the beginning, we kind of, had webinars and information sessions and resources for people to look at. And we were struggling many times to make it relevant to our employees, because we also from the central team kind of fell into that trap of trying to explain this wonderful concept, of how we are changing the world at a 30,000 foot level, instead of going very quickly towards, what does that mean exactly for, the main business areas that our company is in, and back that up with good examples that are easy to understand. Because yes, I agree with you. I think every one of us on the call, we have activities in our companies that even if you don't call it like that, or you were not aware of it, you can put them in a circular framing. And I think this is also very important to do so, because you don't want to people have the idea that they need to start something completely new. It's always nicer to start from a base of activities. But sometimes, it's not so easy to explain exactly why this is circular. Yet that is really the key thing to get started, and that's a lesson that we had learned. To get there, and I think we're still not there, because what then the next step was for us is to make that more targeted segmentation of internal audiences. In the beginning, it was like, okay, we talk about circular economy to everyone, because of course it's relevant for everybody. It took quite some iterations to come to another conclusion where you say, okay, certainly some elements are relevant for everyone, but if you want to make it really stick, you have to be much more granular, and you have to address subpopulations. You have to talk to your designers in a very different way than to your salespeople, than to your procurement people. And actually, even within the design group, or let's say the product creation group, we kind of concluded that the first subgroup that we want to target are the architects who design, let's say, the framework, the platforms, the high-level, long-living architectures of products. And we need to get those people first on board and have them understand what their role is in this whole transformation, and what kind of tools we could help them to use when they have their discussions. And from there, continue further out into the wider community of product creating people, to use that term, before actually going to the next group. And that is a lot of work that you have to be very diligent about. And you can, in our experience, not do top down. It has to be a way that these folks need to be involved from the beginning, and also in those workshops that we have then introduced, as something I'm happy to share about. We also don't have them as like a classroom where there's the person who knows everything in the front and then tells to those architects how to do it, but rather, sketch, let's say, a landscape, and then give the floor very quickly to them as being the experts in their field, and having them really help to take the next steps and make it relevant to their specific business unit, to their specific products, because an MRI scanner requires different design strategies than a toothbrush.
Thanks, Elodie and Markus. Loads of great information and great stories that you're sharing on various elements that that play an important role. And I'm hearing there's a fine line between making it specific for the professionals within their roles, but then also both of you come from large companies, and Philips has, I think, over 70,000 employees. So there's also then at some point a tension between making it specific in different areas and business functions and roles, but at the same time bringing these ideas to scale within the company. And yeah, at the foundation, we got quite inspired by an event that was recently run at Philips that had that theme around bringing these ideas to scale. And it would be great to just have you share a little bit about that, Markus. And just before you jump straight into that, I also wanted to mention that while I'm asking a lot of questions here, well, I haven't been asking lately, but I want to just open up the floor to everybody, in fact, the chat box to everybody to ask if there's anything on your mind, to Elodie, to Markus, and we'll pick up on that, are able to integrate that as well.
Okay, so I happy to share some of that event that we've done recently, and I'm curious to hear, Elodie, how you have been doing work, because I'm sure you have been working on similar things. So what we managed to do in Philips, and this is quite recently, this was the 11th of November, last week. We and it is, sorry to take some time here, but it was quite a long preparation. We have been preparing this since the summer, but on November 11th we had an internal webinar hosted by our CEO and by our head of sustainability for all employees. And yes, we are 77,000 employees. And when an all-employee invitation goes out for a 1-hour webinar, then we are extremely happy when we have 5,000 people dialing in. Because, percentage-wise, this might seem little, but if you look at it, it's really one of those moments in our company where you get really a lot of people aligned and in sync around one thing at one time. And so we had that 1-hour webinar with 5,000 people, talking about how Philips is achieving and pursuing its purpose, and it's trying to get impact in the world as a company through our mission and vision of improving 3 billion people's lives a year, and how the various elements of purpose, be it around the environment, be it about our own employees, be it about the social elements that we strive to as a health technology company, play all a role in here. So we had various power pitches, as we call it, from people in the field, from Philips, sharing some of the highlights of what they have been doing to really give a broad perspective of different angles that are happening to really excite those 5,000 viewers, internal colleagues, on all of that's happening. And here again, this is actually a segmentation again, this time not around functions, but really around level of engagement. So we have segmented kind of 3 main levels, basically. One, people who have heard about the mission of the company, basically everyone, but who don't really know much about it in detail. So for those people, we have this 1-hour webinar that, of course, is recorded, and they can watch it afterwards again. Then the second level is about folks who have been engaged, who know quite a lot of what's happening, but who basically haven't made the step to get actively involved through their role. So they listen to all these kinds of internal chats and see webinars and are still curious, of course, what can I do? So for those folks, we connected right after that 1-hour speech. We made a half a day workshop, and that's then not for 5,000. This was then for 500 people, located in 5 different places in the world, and we had prepared that with very specific local translations of what the global challenges and the global circular economy challenge in particular means for their country and for their regional business. So we had the US, we had India, we had China, we had the Netherlands, Netherlands twice, because we're quite heavy represented here. So that's for that audience, with the ambition really for them to take the next step and move from being kind of knowledgeable to being actively involved in taking a challenge and taking an action themselves in their specific role. And then last but not least, we had a smaller group of 50 people, which were basically the ones who are already active, who have been using their role to further the transformation of the organization. And we had prepared those folks to be facilitators at the workshops. So these are a little bit the the ambassadors that Elodie has also been mentioning about, that we wanted to showcase and give them a stage also to show what they have been doing, through many times also years of evolution in standing up for something in the first place, and then becoming a champion for something, and now being role models. So having them being the facilitators of these workshops had been a double effect of showcasing what they have done to the others, and of course encouraging them to further do that even more. And so we had the layered approach, and I feel it has been quite successful. They were very engaged. I had the opportunity to be a facilitator in one of the sites to basically run people through the program, and then step back and let them do their thing, and just walk around and listen in. And I was really, really excited, because it really felt great to see all of these people picking up their roles and being very energetic, being very creative about all the things that they think about what could be done. So finally moving into a phase where the circular economy ambitions move out of a ivory tower headquarters kind of activity into something that is being taken up by a larger group of people all over the different sites that we had involved, and is going to move further on from, like the Dutch like to say, like an oil spot, right? How do you say that in English? Maybe you know what I mean, but it's like a drop of oil you put, and then whoa, it spreads like on the water surface.
We have the picture, yeah.
You have the picture. So I'm shutting up now and see if you have some questions. And Elodie, if you have maybe some other similar experience that you have been able to take off.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few minutes left now before we move on to the second part. So yeah, it would be great, Elodie, to hear from you how you work with that tension between giving, role-specific guidance on role-specific context, but at the same time also how you what experiences you have made in scaling the idea within Tarkett and also beyond Europe, because you shared with me some examples from other geographies as well.
Yes, but definitely we haven't done anything of the scale that Markus just described. So I see that Thomas from our communications team is on this webinar, so I'm hoping he's taking a lot of notes so that we can just copy that, because it's a great idea. But actually we might do something like this in the very near future, but just know that starting from this year, our CEO has announced a new strategy for Tarkett, and circular economy is part of the fourth pillar in our strategy, and we only have 4. So we have 4 pillars, and circular economy is in the fourth one. So it's definitely on top of mind for for everybody within our organization. And so it means that if you say at the CEO level that circular economy is now very strategic and we all have to engage, it means that we also have a lot of questions from people in the different functions in our group, and they actually call us or email us or ask us, what can I do? Exactly what Markus was describing. What can I do now to really contribute to make sure that we succeed? And also people have a lot of questions about, okay, so we do circular economy. What is it exactly? What is it that we are doing? And the webinars I was mentioning, for ENEA, they are all based on those questions. They do not come out, just like that. They are all based on the questions that the people in different parts of the organization have been asking. So we provide them with answers to their questions through this set of webinars. We mentioned also that we have those ambassadors in North America, and in one of the areas they have had a completely different approach. they decided to call on some external experts to come and train their top senior management regarding circular economy, and that's our Australian operations. And they decided to join forces with people from the WELL standard. I'm not sure that everybody's quite versed into what WELL is and what the standard is, but some consultants actually joined, and they were the ones conducting also some training sessions for top management, top senior managers. And it was quite successful as well, because they related that to the industry we're in. We can say that, okay, we are manufacturing flooring, but our industry is actually the building industry. And so WELL is a building standard. So they were really relating what it is we are doing at Tarkett and how you can actually activate that within the building industry. So it was really important for the audience, because it was really actionable for them. So it was not just, a top-down training. We tend not to do that. So it really was something that they could take with them and talk about the next day, literally. So they really felt quite happy and confident about it. And I think that's also key when you're trying to teach or to learn or to train people into circular economy. I think Markus has said it a bit, many times as well. It has to make sense for them in what it is they do for the company. It can make sense, for them in their daily life, but it has to make sense for them in what they do for the company. So it has to make sense in their function. It has to be actionable, and especially when it is, aimed at sales and marketing people, it has to be a key business differentiator in a way. They have to see the value in it for their job and for what it is they're doing for their own ecosystem.
You're on mute, Monika.
Very good point. How about this? Yes, thank you so much for all the shares. We did have our first question come in. So a question for Markus, and yeah, so at the last acceleration workshop in Niagara, there was an internal story of Philips using an internal networking platform, which data mined to identify employees. Can you share a little bit on that? That would be great. Thanks,
Joe. So basically we have, and I assume many of you do have these kinds of internal chat and Facebook-like digital infrastructures where employees can share what they're doing and ask questions, and frequently this is the most efficient and quickest way to get to the information that you look for in organizations that are tending to be big and where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand knows, etc. So what we've done already quite some time ago, of course, we have been setting up specific groups around sustainability, around circular economy in Philips, and of course, we have been trying to use these channels to have discussions, awareness creation, posting things there, sharing things that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is doing, the newest diff, and put it there so people can go and have a look. And what we did in the run-up to this event I was just talking about is that we really went through all the statistics on that Facebook together with our friends who are running this. So this is all internal comms and professional communication internally, to really figure out, what is the population that we have on there? How many are those? How active are they? And then also go to a level on geography. So where are they located? And go to even the name level and the function level. So who are these colleagues? And do we find specific functions back more than others? And so this helped us when we did the event to nudge certain colleagues into being participants, because as I mentioned earlier, our point was to have a more segmented approach for the needs of different groups of colleagues. So it wouldn't have been as effective if we had, let's say, people who had never heard about the Philips circular economy strategy next to somebody who is an ambassador who has been working on it for years in the same room, because it would have been too much of a distance. So what we did is we had an open invitation for those workshops, because we want to give everybody the chance to be there. But at the same time, we were kind of behind the scenes nudging our group of people that we are aware of from these social networks to be the first in line and give them some preference when setting up the waiting lists. So we were kind of manipulating a little bit in the background our participation or our participants in order to make sure that we kind of cater to that more engaged level of employees and make sure that they can accelerate, because we know that it takes time for people to move through the engagement curve. So if we pick up people for a certain level higher in the curve, we make sure that we have a higher level of conversion, let's call it this way, into real action, right? So and that's what we have been doing.
So there is the question that came in is, if you think about learning resources to help employees get the circular economy, what do you need? Either Elodie or Markus, who would like to respond to that?
Wow, that's a broad question. That's a very broad one. Well, I think both Markus and I described different ways of going about it, and I don't think you can pinpoint just a single set of resources. It's pretty much everything you can think about. You have to put out there. I mean, and I really like the way you described it, Markus, because it is very structured, and it is I think the right approach. I mean, to have any kind of format you can think of, try and put it out there, and you will see many people will join. We start conversations and identifying people who are already engaged and who are already talking about it, and use them also not only as ambassadors, but of course use them as the main talking points, and they should be put forward as speakers, because they are actually maybe not experts, but they are actually experts in their own field, and they use circular economy in their own field. And this is more powerful than someone who is an expert, of circular economy and just trying to translate that into what it could mean for sales, marketing, R&D, design. It's a lot more powerful once you have a designer talking to designers, and I think this is what you need. I mean, the best resource is your own people. It's the ones that are already convinced, that are already talking to you, coming to you, challenging you as the circular economy expert, and telling you should be doing this, and we should be engaged in that, and why aren't we doing this? And this is great. When they start to come to you, these are the ones that you want, to tie to the chair and say, "Do not move."
Thanks,
and cut in your
Elodie.
piece.
Great.
And
And
I fully endorse that. And let me just add one more element to it that might, add some light. We actually use this kind of phrase in terms of learning, where we say 10% of learning happens through formal learning resources. So this e-learning and classroom kind of thing, right? And then we say 20% happens through peer-to-peer coaching. You learn it from somebody else who, like the designer to the designer, etc., or you ask your colleague. And then actually 70% is you figure out things as you go on your job. And that's the proportion that we find is very helpful. And trying to cater for that, is I guess the art in bringing that to life.
thank you, both of you. I think these were really good closing words. I feel like this has been a really great opportunity to hear from two different companies who've been on that journey for almost longer than the foundation. Well, not longer, but yeah, for the majority of the time that the foundation exists. And it's been a real pleasure to have you both here today. So thank you so much, Elodie and Markus, for coming on to this webinar with us today, and to take the time to think about the various learnings that you have had, the tips that you've shared with us, and yeah, to show the various facets from thinking big picture, you know, having the management committed, to thinking about how to bring that to life in the different parts of your company, but also how to engage in the softer side of things, in the culture, in the mobilizing, motivating people, and creating community and pockets of leading, catalyzing action. So thank you so much. I think I can speak on behalf of most of the people on this call that this has been really inspiring and informative. And yeah, thanks for attending, everybody. Wishing you a lovely rest of your afternoon, and looking forward to seeing you again on one of our webinars.